If you're taking the LSAT in February or beyond, you're going to want to change up your prep. The reports are in. LSAT is including more questions on formal logic on the exam. Today, I'll walk you through what this means for your prep. For those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I personally increased my LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. Now, for over a year, there have been increasing reports from test takers that LSAT is including more questions on conditional reasoning, numbers and percentages, formal logic, meaning questions where creating a diagram may be useful. To be clear, this is not some radical new question type. This is nothing crazy. These questions have always been on the exam. There are countless examples, and I'll share some of them with you later in this video. But what we are seeing is more of these questions than we saw in the past. Now, reports are that some of these questions are on the scored portions of the test. Many more are on the unscored extra experimental section, indicating that LSAT will increase the proportion of these questions even more going forward. Now, what do these questions look like exactly? A lot of them are logic games like, with lots of concrete diagrammable statements, like the rules you might see in a grouping in-out game, for example, back in the day. These questions are more complex and more technically worded than a lot of the informal logic questions that you might see on, say, a necessary assumption question. In these questions I'm talking about now, diagramming is oftentimes helpful, even if it is not always necessary. The benefit, of course, is that if you do diagram, the answer is more objective, it is clear, and even, dare I say, predictable. Now, I usually hate to see students diagram in the logical reasoning section, but there are some cases where diagramming is oftentimes useful, and formal logic questions are one of these types. You oftentimes see formal logic in inference questions like must be true, most strongly supported, cannot be true, and must be false questions. You will also see diagramming come up sometimes in sufficient assumption questions and sometimes in parallel reasoning questions as well. Now, I mentioned earlier I would share some examples of these questions. I'll share those in just a moment. But before I do, I wanted to let you know that if you're looking for support with these types of questions or anything else on the LSAT, at LSAT Unplugged, we'd be glad to help you out. We offer live online classes via Zoom, on-demand video courses, small group coaching, and one-on-one coaching. You can check out the links below this video to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. And we have plenty of lessons on these topics that I'm talking about in this very video. Topics like formal logic, topics like numbers and percentages. We cover questions like the following. So for example, there's a great formal logic question from Prep Test 111. It's an inference question on inspired musical performances. Diagramming is very useful in this particular example, makes the answer predictable. Another great example here of what you might want to study is a flaw question from Prep Test 117 involving numbers and percentages. The topic is Clara Schumann. There's also a great parallel reasoning question in Prep Test 124 about April rainfall. Diagramming could be helpful in this example. My final example for you here is a sufficient assumption question from Prep Test 130 about handmade wigs. Now, the very fact that I can cite these 4 examples, and there are countless more I could have mentioned in this video, tells us that the questions I'm talking about today are not some radical change for the LSAT. They are not something totally different or something totally new. What I am suggesting here is that you brush up on these types of questions because it seems that LSAT is looking to test out these concepts more in the logical reasoning section going forward, since they can no longer test them in the logic games section, since of course there is no more logic games section. For those who aren't aware, the LSAT used to have a logic games section on the test. They removed it after the June LSAT, and they replaced it with a second scored logical reasoning section. So the LSATs in August, September, October, November, and January all had 2 logical reasoning sections, as the LSAT will continue to do for the foreseeable future. But because LSAT can no longer test the logic games concepts on the test because there is no more logic games section, they may want to test these concepts more in the logical reasoning section, which is what the test is evolving to do going forward. So again, if you'd like my help exploring these concepts, navigating them, understanding them better, or any other concepts on the test if you're taking the LSAT in February or beyond, you could check out the links below this video to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. Again, we'd be glad to help you out. And in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.